The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Kira stepped forward, her boots echoing against the crystalline floor. Around her, representatives from 47 different species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. The humans were the newest members of the galactic community, barely 3 decades since first contact, and still considered primitive by most standards. "Honored delegates," Kira began, her voice steady despite the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. "I come before you today with news that will reshape our understanding of human history and perhaps the galaxy itself." The insectoid delegate from Arcturus Prime clicked his mandibles dismissively. "More human mythology, no doubt. Your species has a peculiar fascination with ancient mysteries that rarely prove substantial." Kira smiled, a gesture that had taken years to master in interspecies diplomacy. She activated the holographic projector embedded in her wristcom, and the chamber filled with gasps as a massive structure materialized above them. The city hung in space like a jewel against the void, its spires reaching impossibly high, its architecture a blend of familiar human aesthetics and something utterly alien. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring station detected this appearing near the edge of the Vega system, Kira continued. Initial scans confirmed what seemed impossible. It's human in origin, but predates our earliest recorded civilizations by at least 50,000 years. The Centaurian delegate, a tall being with silver skin and multiple eyes, leaned forward. "Impossible. Your species achieved spaceflight only centuries ago. This must be some elaborate deception." "That's what we thought too," Kira replied. "Until we received this transmission." The hologram shifted, and suddenly the chamber filled with a voice speaking in perfect, ancient Sanskrit, a language dead on Earth for millennia, yet somehow preserved in the stars. The translation scrolled beneath the image, "To those who remember the old ways, who carry the spark of Terra within their hearts, come home. The city of remembrance awaits." Captain Max Turner had been skeptical when the Council assigned him to lead the expedition. A career military officer with more combat experience than archaeological training, he felt out of his depth investigating ancient mysteries. But as his ship, the Endeavor, approached the floating city, even his pragmatic mind couldn't deny the wonder before him. The city was vast beyond comprehension, easily the size of a small moon, yet it maintained a perfect structural integrity that defied known physics. Gardens cascaded down the sides of towering spires, their plant life somehow thriving in the vacuum of space. Bridges of pure light connected different districts, and at the city's heart, a massive crystal pulsed with a warm golden glow. "Captain," called Lieutenant Maya from the sensor station, her voice tight with excitement. "I'm reading life signs, thousands of them. But the readings are ... strange. They're human, but not quite like anything in our databases." Max felt a chill run down his spine. This was supposed to be an abandoned relic, not a living city. Open a channel, all frequencies. The response came immediately, not through their communications array, but somehow directly into their minds. The voice was ancient yet timeless, carrying the weight of eons and the warmth of a long-lost friend. "Welcome, children of Earth. We have waited so long for your return. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. As the Endeavor docked with the ancient city, Max couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The docking bay that received them was clearly designed for their ship, despite being built millennia before humans had even dreamed of the stars. Standing in the airlock, breathing recycled air that somehow carried the scent of Earth's ancient forests, Max realized they weren't just explorers anymore. They were pilgrims, returning to a home they never knew they had lost. The interior of the city defied every expectation Max had formed during their approach. Corridors stretched in impossible directions, their walls alive with soft bioluminescence that pulsed in rhythm with an unheard heartbeat. The architecture seemed to flow rather than stand, as if the entire structure had been grown rather than built. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's Zen archaeologist, ran her scanner along the nearest wall and nearly dropped the device. "Captain, these readings are extraordinary. The material isn't metal or stone, it's some kind of crystallized organic compound. And it's responding to our presence." As if summoned by her words, a figure emerged from the flowing shadows ahead. Max's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm, but stopped as the being came into full view. It was unmistakably human in basic form, yet transformed. The figure stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs and features that seemed carved from starlight itself. Its eyes held the depth of nebulae, and when it spoke, the words resonated in their minds rather than their ears. "I am Keeper Ren, guardian of the City of Remembrance. You carry the genetic echo of those who built this place, though time has dimmed the song in your blood." The being moved with fluid grace, gesturing for them to follow. "Come, the Council of Memory awaits." They walked through halls lined with murals that seemed to move and breathe, depicting humanity's forgotten exodus from Earth in a time before recorded history. The images showed great ships carrying millions of humans to distant stars, not as refugees, but as pioneers answering an ancient call to seed the galaxy with Earth's children. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Vasquez, her scientific training warring with the evidence before her eyes. "Human civilization is only 10,000 years old on Earth. We have no record of any previous spacefaring culture." Keeper Ren paused, turning to face her with an expression of infinite sadness. "Your records speak only of those who chose to remain, to forget the stars and begin anew. But some remembered. Some carried the old knowledge and built this place as a beacon, a gathering point for when the scattered children would finally reach beyond their birth world once more." The corridor opened into a vast chamber where dozens of beings like Ren stood in silent congregation. Each was unique yet unmistakably human in origin, their forms adapted to lives among the stars. Some bore the crystalline growths that spoke of deep space habitation, others showed the elegant elongation of low-gravity worlds, and still others carried modifications that suggested generations spent in the heart of stellar nebulae. At the chamber's center stood a figure that commanded immediate attention. Unlike the others, this being retained more familiar human proportions, though its eyes held the same cosmic depth. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of eons. "I am High Keeper Atlas, last of the first wave. We have maintained this vigil for 53,000 years, waiting for our distant cousins to reclaim their heritage among the stars." The being's gaze fixed on Max with an intensity that seemed to peer into his very soul. "You wonder why the Galactic Council treats humanity with such dismissal. It is because they remember us, the first humans to claim the void, as our domain. They remember, and they fear." Lieutenant Maya stepped forward, her youth making her bold where experience might counsel caution. What happened to cause the exodus? Why did humanity leave Earth so long ago? Atlas smiled, the expression both beautiful and terrible. "Your species possessed something the galaxy had never seen, the ability to adapt not just to worlds, but to existence itself. Where other species required technology to survive in hostile environments, humans evolved. Where others needed vast fleets to explore, humans learned to become one with their ships, their cities, their very environment." The High Keeper gestured to the living walls around them. "This city is not built, it is grown, cultivated from human consciousness merged with cosmic matter. We became something beyond what the galaxy thought possible. The other species formed an alliance to contain us, to prevent our spread. Some humans fought, some fled, and others ... Atlas paused, pain flickering across its features. Others chose to forget, to return to Earth and live as if the stars had never called to them. Max felt a chill of understanding. The Council doesn't see us as primitives. They see us as a returning threat. Indeed. And now you must choose, as your ancestors did. Will you reclaim your birthright among the stars, or will you return to the comfortable prison of ignorance? The choice Atlas presented hung heavy in the recycled air of the ancient chamber. Max found himself studying the faces of his crew, seeing the same mixture of wonder and fear reflected in their expressions. This wasn't just about their mission anymore, it was about the entire future of humanity. Dr. Vasquez broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. Show us what we were, what we could become again. High Keeper Atlas nodded solemnly and raised his hand toward the chamber's ceiling. The crystalline dome above them dissolved into transparency, revealing the cosmos beyond. But this wasn't the empty void they expected. Space itself seemed alive with networks of light connecting distant stars, pathways that pulsed with purposeful energy. 50,000 years ago, humanity didn't just explore space, we became part of it. Atlas explained as the display above shifted to show the galaxy as it once was. These pathways are the stellar streams, arteries of consciousness that allowed human settlements to remain connected across impossible distances. Each colony wasn't just a world, it was a neuron in a vast galactic mind. The vision showed human cities orbiting stars, not as mechanical constructs, but as living entities that had grown in harmony with solar winds and cosmic radiation. People moved between worlds not in ships, but as beings of pure thought traveling along streams of organized energy. Lieutenant Maya's technical background made her the first to grasp the implications. The energy expenditure alone would require resources beyond anything we can imagine. How did we power such a network? Keeper Ren stepped forward, his form beginning to shimmer. By understanding that consciousness itself is a fundamental force of the universe. Human awareness, properly focused and evolved, could tap into the zero-point energy that permeates all existence. We didn't fight entropy, we partnered with it. Before their eyes, Ren's physical form began to dissolve into streams of light that danced through the air around them. Yet his presence remained, stronger than ever, as if proximity to them was unnecessary for communication. This is why the other species feared us, came Ren's voice from everywhere and nowhere. We were evolving beyond the need for physical form, beyond the limitations that defined their understanding of life itself. They saw us not as allies, but as harbingers of their own obsolescence. The implications crashed over Max like a tidal wave. The war you mentioned, it wasn't about territory or resources. It was about the very nature of existence. Atlas nodded gravely. The Crystalline Syndicate, the Void Walkers, the harmonic collective, dozens of species united in their determination to halt human evolution. They couldn't understand that our growth didn't diminish them. In seeking to limit us, they ultimately limited themselves. Dr. Vasquez had been running continuous scans throughout the exchange, and now she looked up from her instruments with excitement. Captain, the readings are incredible. The energy patterns here suggest that consciousness isn't just observing reality, it's actively participating in its creation. This technology, if we can call it that, operates on principles our science hasn't even theorized. Because your modern science deliberately forgot these principles, Atlas said sadly. The humans who remained on Earth after the Great Exodus made a collective choice to suppress the memories of what they once were. They feared that remembering would draw the attention of those who had fought so hard to contain humanity's expansion. Maya's eyes widened with sudden understanding. The myths. Every human culture has stories about a golden age, about gods who walked among mortals, about lost civilizations with impossible technology. Those weren't fantasies, they were genetic memories. Precisely. The knowledge sleeps in your DNA, waiting for the proper catalyst to awaken it. Atlas moved closer to Max, his presence radiating ancient power. That catalyst is choice. The same choice your ancestors faced: embrace your evolutionary potential or remain safely limited. Max felt the weight of species-wide responsibility settling on his shoulders. What happens if we choose to remember? What happens if we awaken these abilities? Then humanity reclaims its place as shepherds of galactic consciousness, Atlas replied. But know this, the other species have spent 50 millennia preparing for your potential return. They will not welcome the awakening of human potential. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just discovering their past, they were potentially triggering a conflict that could reshape the entire galaxy. There's something else you need to understand, Atlas continued, his form beginning to solidify once more. The City of Remembrance appeared now for a reason. Our monitoring systems have detected something approaching from outside the galaxy, something that the current Galactic Council cannot comprehend or combat with their limited understanding of consciousness-based technologies. As if responding to his words, the stellar display above them shifted to show the galaxy's edge, where something vast and incomprehensible writhed in the cosmic darkness beyond familiar space. The entity approaching from extragalactic space defied comprehension. It moved through the void like a living shadow, consuming light itself and leaving expanding zones of absolute darkness in its wake. The display above showed its inexorable progress toward the Milky Way's outer rim, and Max felt a primal terror that seemed to bypass his rational mind entirely. What is that thing? Maya whispered, her usual technical composure shattered by the implications of what they were witnessing. Highkeeper. Atlas's form flickered with distress signals that registered in wavelengths beyond normal human perception. We call it the void. Hunger, a manifestation of consciousness turned entirely inward, consuming reality to feed its own existence. It represents everything that the evolutionary path of awareness can become when stripped of connection and empathy. Dr. Vasquez furiously adjusted her instruments, trying to gather data on the impossible entity. The readings are chaotic. It's not just destroying matter, it's unmaking the fundamental structures that allow matter to exist. Space itself is dissolving around it. The current Galactic Council has no defense against such a threat. Atlas continued, his ancient voice heavy with accumulated sorrow. Their technology, advanced as it is, operates within the limitations of purely physical reality. The void hunger exists partially outside those constraints. Captain Max Turner had commanded ships through hostile territory and faced enemies that outnumbered his forces 100 to 1. But this was different. This was a threat to existence itself. How long before it reaches inhabited systems? At its current rate of consumption, approximately 18 months. The outer colonies will be the first to fall, followed by the major trade routes, and eventually the core worlds. Atlas gestured, and the display zoomed in to show the creature's projected path. The Council's mathematical models give them a 12% chance of meaningful resistance. Keeper Wren's luminous form drifted closer, his presence carrying urgency that transcended words. But humanity's forgotten abilities offer a different possibility. Consciousness-based defenses could potentially create barriers that the void hunger cannot simply consume. The question is whether your species can evolve quickly enough to matter. The weight of cosmic responsibility pressed down on the small human crew. Maya found herself thinking of Earth, of billions of people living their lives unaware that existence itself hung in the balance. What would we need to do? How does a species evolve in 18 months? By remembering what you once were, Atlas replied. The genetic memories in human DNA contain not just knowledge, but actual neural pathways for consciousness manipulation. With the proper guidance, individuals can reawaken abilities that took your ancestors millennia to develop. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her readings with scientific skepticism warring with growing wonder. You're talking about fundamental changes to human neurology. Even if such modifications were possible, the psychological impact would be devastating. People's entire understanding of reality would be shattered. Better shattered understanding than no existence at all, Ren observed with cosmic pragmatism. But you raise a valid concern. The awakening process must be voluntary and gradual, or it will drive individuals to madness. Max made a command decision that would ripple through human history. We need to contact Earth immediately. The Council, the governments, everyone needs to know what's coming. Atlas shook his head, the gesture carrying millennia of bitter experience. The Galactic Council will suppress this information to prevent panic. They would rather face extinction than admit they need humanity's help. Pride is a universal constant among spacefaring species. Then we bypass them, Max said firmly. We take this information directly to Earth and let humanity choose its own path. The High Keeper's expression shifted to something approaching approval. Such decision-making ability is why your species earned both fear and respect among the stars. Very well. But understand that choosing this path will mark humanity as a rogue element in galactic politics. The Council will view your awakening as a greater threat than the approaching void. Maya's communications training kicked in as she considered the practical challenges. How do we even begin to explain this to Earth? Ancient human civilizations, consciousness-based technology, existential threats from outside the galaxy. It sounds like science fiction. Start with those who are ready to listen, Ren suggested. Scientists studying consciousness, philosophers exploring the nature of reality, artists whose work touches on transcendent themes. These individuals often carry stronger genetic echoes of humanity's cosmic heritage. Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly, her scientific mind beginning to process the implications. A gradual disclosure program, building understanding through multiple channels simultaneously. But we'll need proof, demonstrations that can't be dismissed as elaborate hoaxes. Atlas raised his hand, and suddenly each member of the human crew felt their consciousness expand. For a brief moment, they could perceive the stellar streams connecting. Distant worlds, feel the pulse of galactic consciousness, and understand their place in the vast web of aware existence. The experience lasted only seconds, but left them fundamentally changed. That is proof enough, Atlas said as they recovered from the transcendent experience. Each of you now carries an activated fragment of humanity's cosmic potential. You will serve as bridges between your sleeping species and its awakening destiny. Max realized that they were no longer simply explorers or diplomats. They had become the first seeds of humanity's return to its galactic heritage, carrying within their minds the tools needed to awaken an entire species before the darkness beyond. The stars could claim them all. The journey back to Earth felt different now. The familiar blue marble hanging in space no longer seemed like humanity's cradle, but rather like a sleeping giant waiting to reclaim its birthright among the stars. Max stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, watching his homeworld grow larger. In the view screen, while inside his transformed consciousness he could feel the subtle currents of awareness that connected every living thing on the planet below. "Captain," Maya reported from her station, her voice carrying new harmonics that reflected her expanded awareness. "We're receiving standard approach vectors from Earth traffic control. No indication they've detected anything unusual about our return." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her data analysis, her eyes now holding flecks of starlight that hadn't been there before their encounter with the City of Remembrance. "The genetic activation readings are stable across all crew members. We're maintaining the enhanced consciousness patterns without degradation." 3 months had passed since their departure from the ancient city, 3 months of careful planning and preparation. They carried within their minds not just knowledge of humanity's forgotten past, but active templates for awakening the dormant potential that slept in human DNA. The question now was whether they could convince their species to embrace transformation. Before the void hunger reached the galaxy's outer colonies. As the Endeavor entered Earth's atmosphere, Max felt the weight of 8 billion unawakened minds below. Each human carried the same genetic heritage, the same potential for consciousness evolution that had once made their species the galaxy's most feared and respected civilization. But they also carried 50,000 years of deliberate forgetfulness, cultural conditioning that rejected the very possibilities they needed to embrace. The landing at Geneva Spaceport proceeded normally, with standard decontamination procedures and preliminary debriefings. But Max could sense the subtle wrongness in the air, the way conversations stopped when they passed, the lingering looks from security personnel. Someone had been asking questions about their extended mission to the mysterious city. Ambassador Kira met them in the secure briefing room, her expression carefully neutral. "Welcome home, Captain. I trust your archaeological survey was enlightening?" "More than you can imagine," Max replied, choosing his words carefully. "We need to speak with the full council immediately. What we discovered changes everything about humanity's place in the galaxy." Kira's composure cracked slightly. "That may be more difficult than you think. The Galactic Council has filed a formal complaint about humanity's unauthorized investigation of potentially dangerous xenoarchaeological sites. There's talk of restrictions on our exploration rights." Dr. Vasquez exchanged glances with Maya, both women recognizing the political maneuvering that Atlas had predicted. "They're trying to contain us before we even report our findings." "What exactly did you find out there?" Kira asked, her ambassadorial training warring with genuine curiosity. Max made a decision that would alter the course of human history. Rather than simply tell her, he reached out with his expanded consciousness and gently touched the edge of Kira's mind. For just a moment, he shared with her the vision of humanity's cosmic heritage, the stellar streams, the consciousness-based technologies, the vast network of awareness that had once connected human colonies across the galaxy. Kira gasped, staggering backward as her worldview shattered and reformed around the impossible truth. That's not possible. Humans can't. We don't have." "We do," Maya said gently, her own enhanced awareness allowing her to monitor Kira's psychological state. "We always have. We just forgot how to remember." Over the following hours, they carefully walked Kira through the full revelation. The ancient Exodus, the war with the Galactic Council's predecessors, the choice to forget, and most critically, the approaching threat that made humanity's awakening not just possible, but necessary for galactic survival. "The void hunger will reach the outer colonies in 15 months, Max explained, displaying the cosmic entity's projected path on the briefing room's holographic projector. "The current Galactic Council's technology cannot stop it, but humanity's consciousness-based abilities might be able to create defenses that operate outside normal physical constraints." Kira sat in stunned silence for long minutes, her newly activated genetic memories integrating with her existing knowledge and experience. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of species-wide responsibility. "Even if everything you're telling me is true, how do we convince 8 billion people to undergo such a fundamental transformation? How do we awaken an entire species without causing mass psychological trauma?" Dr. Vasquez had been working on this problem since their departure from the City of Remembrance. Gradual integration through willing volunteers. "We start with individuals who are already exploring consciousness: scientists, philosophers, artists, spiritual leaders. Each person we successfully awaken becomes a catalyst for others. Like a virus of enlightenment," Maya added, then caught herself at the unfortunate metaphor, "but voluntary and beneficial." Max nodded. "The key is choice. Everyone who participated in the original awakening did so voluntarily. We can't force evolution, we can only offer the opportunity and let people decide for themselves." Kira stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city beyond. And if the Galactic Council tries to stop us, then we'll have to choose between their approval and our survival, Max replied firmly. Atalis warned us that awakening humanity would make us a rogue element in galactic politics. But the alternative is extinction, not just for us, but for all conscious life in the galaxy. The ambassador turned back to face them, her expression resolving into determination. Then we begin immediately. I'll arrange meetings with the key figures we need to reach, but quietly, through unofficial channels. We can't afford to trigger council intervention until we have enough awakened humans to resist their interference. As the sun set over Geneva, painting the sky in shades of cosmic possibility, Max felt the first stirrings of humanity's return to greatness. In conference rooms and laboratories around the world, the seeds of awakening would soon be planted. The question was whether they could grow fast enough to matter when the darkness between galaxies finally arrived at their doorstep, not the age of human. Cosmic consciousness was about to begin anew, and this time, there would be no retreat to comfortable forgetfulness. The stars themselves depended on it.